First, good morning, and thank everyone for joining myself, Annette and Annette this morning for our workshop on preserving and creating wealth. Before we get started, we do have some housekeeping. As you know, this workshop is being recorded, so if you are on camera, we ask that you do not have a lot going on in the background. If so, just go ahead and turn your cameras off. We also ask that you please keep your phones on mute. We'll have question and answers at the end. If you have any questions throughout the presentations, just go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll make sure that we address them during our Q&A. All right, and then now that that's out of the way, we have three very special speakers today that will touch on the past, present, and future of being financially free. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Annette, who will introduce our first speaker.
Good morning, everybody. I want to introduce Nika to you. I ran across a post she did. It had to be about 2 years ago, but she was talking about some of the conditions of the properties here in Baltimore. I started following her on Facebook. And as I did that, I learned her story. Nika is the founder and director of Fight Blight Baltimore. It's an organization that I feel like is truly a Baltimore community advocacy organization. I have learned so much just from watching her post. I know at one time she was doing hood hikes where she was actually walking folks through the neighborhoods. I've just learned so much about the history of Baltimore through that. She started this organization because on Mother's Day, she had witnessed a tragedy. There was children playing and riding their bikes on the sidewalk of Fremont Avenue, crossing into Lafayette Street. There were 4 demolished brownstones. The brownstone the brownstone site was filled with debris, gaping holes, and there were 6 feet deep in the ground. She goes further to say that site had no gates around it. There was nothing protecting those children from walking onto the site and possibly being injured. A lot of the stuff that we do for our children, we do for our legacy. And just through her organization, I see how much she cares for the community, for our organization, and really about building legacy and leaving it here in Baltimore. So without further ado, take it away, Nika.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We're going to jump right in because I'm about to try to give you all a 2-hour presentation in 20 minutes, right? So again, I'm Nika Nambi. I am the creator of Fight Blight Be More. Our mission is to function as a social, environmental, economic justice initiative aimed at remediating blight. And by blight, we mean the presence, especially in concentration, of vacant, abandoned, dilapidated, underutilized, and misutilized properties in community. And we do so contextualizing data in ways that does not pathologize people just trying to live in community, and use that data to support community-led, visioned, and owned development. The short way to say that is to support equitable development in our communities. And so oftentimes there's a whole conversation about why our neighborhoods look the way that they do. There's a lot of dialogue about how it is a reflection of something innately wrong with Black folks. And that is what you would think if you didn't understand the history, right? And so we cannot address what is happening today without a clear and complete understanding of what has happened to our folks. Baltimore, because it's a old world colonial city, it's one of the first cities in America, and it is also one of the places where Black people have been the longest in America. There is a long string of history for us to review, but we're going to for this presentation, we're going to start loosely in the 1950s after I give you a few facts that are really important. Number one, Baltimore had the largest population of free Africans or free Black folks during the period of enslavement, who were doing any number of different economic activities in spite of a number of laws that prevented them from growing and developing generational wealth. For example, the Maryland Occupational Acts, which there's a series of Black codes, of which this one is one, that prevented us from doing certain jobs. Some of it was preventing us from fishing. Some of it was preventing us from owning carts or drays, which is really interesting if you think about the fact that until recently, Lexington Market had very few Black cart owners, stall owners, but that is tied back to the fact that during the period of enslavement, Black folks who were even free could not do certain jobs. But as we fast forward and get to the 50s, I like to do things with maps, because it gives us a visual. So just understanding that Black people have been here a long time, we have been contributing to the economic vibrancy of the city for a long time without the ability oftentimes to pass that generational wealth on from one generation to the next. And that was happening as the result of policy. So everything that you see in our neighborhoods today is the result of federal, state, and local policy. And so this map on my left-hand side shows areas designated as blighted areas in the 1950s. And when you compare that map to the map on my right, which is the redlining map or the federal residential housing security map, you'll notice that the same neighborhoods that were designated as blighted are the same neighborhoods that had predominantly Black populations, even in the 50s, right? So you can already see you can begin to see the correlation between this designation of blight and where neighborhoods where Black folks live. When you fast forward, as we fast forward in time, we start to see this spreading of or movement of Black folks out of that central business district, east and west, into other neighborhoods as white flight happens. And what you start to see is this visual butterfly, as Dr. Lawrence Brown has so aptly named it, which is this collection of neighborhoods with predominantly Black populations. But these are also the same neighborhoods that have any number of dangerous, unsightly conditions in them. So the map on the left will show you vacant lead paint notices in Baltimore. As you can see, most of them for a particular period of time are inside the neighborhoods that we call the Black butterfly. The map on my right is basically the food typology map for Baltimore, and the areas in red are areas that have been designated as food deserts, even though the language now is actually the community lives under food apartheid. That is to say, there is no full service grocery store within a quarter mile in these particular neighborhoods. And if you think back to the slide from before, these are essentially the same neighborhoods that were redlined or yellow lined in the 1950s and designated as blighted even in the 1950s. If we come forward and we start to look at population change on the right, you can see many of the neighborhoods on the left, you can see that many of the neighborhoods that are in the Black butterfly are experiencing serious population change. A lot of that is the result of incarceration, which displaces people. It is also the result of urban renewal plans or the dismantling of public housing, which also displaces people. And then when we look at the map on the right, you can see the highest levels of incarceration are roughly in the same neighborhoods that were redlined. the same neighborhoods that were designated as blighted, the same neighborhoods with high levels of lead poisoning, the same neighborhoods with a lack of access to healthy food. If we take a look at this particular map, this talks about where it overlays neighborhoods where people are housing insecure. And the definition of housing insecure that we use is that folks are paying more than 30% of their income in housing costs. So the neighborhoods in the darkest orange are neighborhoods where 50% or more of the population are housing insecure. The neighborhoods with the biggest circles are neighborhoods where you had in 2020, I believe this map is from, the highest levels of COVID occurrences. And you can see it's almost, it's the same neighborhoods. So where people are housing insecure, where people have been exposed to lead, where people have been assaulted by incarceration, where people have been redlined and yellowlined, you see that there are negative impacts on one's ability to live. This map in front of you is tax liens, tax certificates in 2020. Same pattern. This is the black butterfly. These neighborhoods have been assaulted by any number of economic policies, any number of housing and community development policies. And the result is that folks are not able to oftentimes access the funds in order to meet the basic need or to meet the basic requirement of paying their property taxes. Now we can go off into I could go into a whole dialogue about property tax assessments. I can go into a whole dialogue about how the tax sale is done, but it's for this purpose, just notice that we are seeing the same pattern. These erosions of Black property rights are based in law, policy, and regulation, whether it's ground rent, whether it's contract lending, whether it's zoning and land use, whether it's housing and building code, whether it's condemnation and demolition, which is something we're seeing happening in Poppleton right now with the Edie family house and the Sarah Ann Street houses, which have the Sarah Ann Street houses, is important to note, have had Black people living in them uninterrupted since 10 years after the Civil War. And now Black folks are being displaced under the cover of a Black developer in order to build high density housing. But for whom? Because as it stands now, Poppleton is roughly 50% vacant. So who, you're continuing to displace Black people. Who are you building this for? And so one of the things that in spite of all of the policy issues, one of the things that we have to do on our end is make sure that we are planning within our families to pass whatever assets we have from one generation to the next. And one of the ways we can do that is by what we call family continuity planning. I won't go into depth with it other than to say it is a little bit more than traditional estate planning, because Black people, one, have these other things that we have to deal with. We have policies, regulations, we have all of these other things, trauma that we have to deal with when we are creating plans for passing assets from one generation to the next. Is one of the reasons why we don't call it estate planning, we call it family continuity planning, because oftentimes when our people hear estate planning, they shut down because they like, well, I don't got nothing. But they don't realize that their grandmother's sweet potato pie recipe is actually intellectual property. It is real intellectual property that could be $1 million pie, a $1 million recipe. They don't realize that one framed picture hanging in their grandmother's front room actually came back from Korea with their great uncle and is a one of a kind. And when she dies, they throw it in the trash, but it's actually an asset that it could be worth, money. We don't think about, we aren't trained to think about these things. We are trained to, diminish the things that the assets that we have that exist inside of neighborhoods that have been redlined and yellow line. So it's just important for us to think about assets in a different way and think about generational wealth transfer in a different way, which is why we call it family continuity planning. It's important to note here that our family history is an asset. We have to understand exactly, and it is difficult for us because there are all these other barriers, but it's important to know the story of your family. And I will give you all a quick anecdote as to why. A lot of us think that we just ended up in Baltimore just because, I don't know, because of slavery. That's it. This is why we're here. But we don't understand that the reason you ended up in Baltimore is because your people lived in South Carolina in the Low Country, and your grandfather had acquired a whole bunch of land and had a store on it and was getting money growing watermelons, rice, or whatever whatever he was growing in the Low Country. And Regis went to pass the literacy test so he could vote to make sure nobody was eroding his property rights, and somebody snatched him up, not somebody, the White Citizens Council, the KKK, you name it, lynched him, and your grandmother and great aunts was like, nope, we got a cousin in Baltimore, we gotta go. And so we're disconnected from that story, so we think we just in Baltimore with nothing. We ain't never do nothing, the stories are lost because oftentimes there's a lot of trauma surround them. Right? There's a lot of negative feelings around them, but it's important that we start to reclaim those stories because those stories inform our today, right? It informs our understanding of where we are. A lot of our families got a lot of beef, smoke, people mad about something that happened in 1931. We understand that it is important, but in Baltimore, we have access to community mediation. We have access to services that will enable us to sit down and hash these things out, because 9 times out of 10, when the grandmother or great aunt or the uncle or the pop die, those things unresolved end up in our family homes being lost to tax sale or being sold under market because we're not able to communicate with each other and deal with the issues, deal with the traumatic stuff that happened. Mediation is one part of our family continuity process. I talked a little bit about the blood and bond property, just the house, the recipes, the things in the house. All of these are things that we need, right, as a part of our family continuity plan. And excuse me, because I am running through this. The traditional estate planning process is important. I won't go through these pieces because I want to talk really briefly about this particular part. For our elders, for ourselves, there are a number of resources available to help us do that family continuity plan, but also to help our elders be able to age in space in their homes, not have to go to nursing homes and whatnot. And I just wanted to point out, in terms of getting the more traditional estate planning pieces done, Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service, St. Ambrose Housing Aid Center, Legal Aid, and also the Pro Bono Resource Center are able to help folks get a will, a living will, your durable power of attorneys, and all of those things in place to help transition the asset, specific, life estate deeds, which is a really powerful document to help you avoid probate for a house. But there are also the homeowners and homestead tax credits, which are really important to help us keep our properties out of tax sale, to keep by lowering the property tax burden. There are some water bill assistance programs, and of course there's the housing hubs or housing upgrades to benefit seniors. Neighborhood Housing Services has some loans, but also right now, it's really important to know that the state, because of COVID, the Fed gave the state some money. And there's a homeowners assistance fund, which basically will help anyone who has a COVID related financial hardship get caught up on either their mortgage payments or their property taxes, ground rent, and water bills. That is under either a grant program or a loan program. And then there's also this weatherization or whole house program that will grant folks money to, much like HUBs, to fix up plumbing, electrical, roofing, things of that nature. And so if you have any elders or anyone who has experienced a COVID-related hardship and needs these types of services, they can, you can reach out to us at the SOS Fund, and we will help connect them to the appropriate services. And I will, when I finish, I will put the SOS Fund contact information in the chat. I wanted to note this one additional solution. We can do all of this stuff that I talked about before. It will help us individually on one level. It'll help us collectively on another level. But we have to recognize that if we do not address the policy related issues, the underlying policies that created blight in our neighborhoods, it doesn't matter how much family continuity planning we do. We have to advocate for policy that is going to repair. It's not enough. Equality is not enough. Equality just means I'm gonna stop stabbing you in the back. I'm not gonna stab you no more. Equity means that I'm going to pull the knife out. I'm gonna give you what you need in order to heal based on what you say is necessary for you to heal. And that equity requires repair, requires reparations. And so there are a number of us that are working together to develop or further develop a land sovereignty and reparations platform. And some on the slide are some of the things that we are advocating and lobbying loosely for at the state and local level. And so it's important just to really, as you're doing this work as realtors, as you're doing this work as developers, as you are purchasing property and attempting to position yourself and your family for wealth creation and wealth transfer, we have to dig into the policies. The reason we're in the conditions that we're in is because of the policies, not because we trifling, not because we lazy, not because we buy lattes at Starbucks. It is because policy has been set up from 1619 and before then that erode our ability to obtain and maintain and transition real property and other assets from one generation to the next. And I know y'all are holding questions to the end, so I'll skip that. I hope I didn't go over my time by too much, but that's what we're doing in these streets, and I'll hang out so that you all can ask questions.
Wow. That is actually, every time Nika speaks, I just feel like I learned something different. I've heard her speak before. It's in a complete alignment with what we were looking for and what we wanted to discuss today. I have my Black Butterfly book here. And if you stay tuned till the end, perhaps I can give away my free copy. I have another copy. So I'm going to ask some questions at the end, make sure that you all were paying attention. That's the teacher in me, I guess. And then I also have this book here. She mentioned this, the 1619 Project. So I haven't finished this one yet, but I'm really excited. And the thing that I learned today, one important term of many things that she mentioned was talking about this life continuity planning. I never heard that term before, so I'm really excited to learn about that. And it segues perfectly right into our next speaker, a personal friend, and also my financial advisor, David Johnson. He has over 13 years of experience, and he gave me a bio that he said was short, but I think is a little lengthy. And I'd rather just tell this personal anecdote about like how I met him. He was introduced to me by a family member, and I knew that I had begun to read, and I saw the maps that Nika had shared, and I really wanted to do something to help serve and empower my community. I am a school teacher turned realtor, and I now do both. And I still wanted to get into real estate development, but I wanted to do it responsibly. There's just if you get a chance to read The Black Butterfly, it speaks to like what Nika was speaking about, the systemic structures. Specifically for me, it impacted me in terms of education. I see students that move from school to school, and that affects their ability to learn a lot. The teachers come from outside of the community. And so when we talk about David, and we talk about improving our financial position, I think it's very important to understand what Nika introduced us to, or reintroduced us to, just the idea that we don't always, everything didn't just happen, it was designed, it was by design. And so as we're seeking our healing and trying to get in a better space and figuring out plans and what we want our legacy to be, it's really, really helpful and interesting, or really helpful to have someone that is well-versed in financial planning, and being able to give you some advice on how you can move forward in your life and prepare for all the different obstacles and challenges you face. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce our next presenter, which is David.
How's everyone doing? Thanks a lot, Annette, for such a great introduction. First of all, good morning. And again, David Johnson, I'm the Managing Director and founder of EXG Nexus Solutions. And what we are is a full registered investment advisory firm. Sometimes people ask me, well, what exactly is an registered investment advisory firm? And I ask them, I say, well, you've heard of Charles Schwab, TD Ameritrade. You're like, yeah. So kind of look at us like Charles Schwab, but much smaller, kind of like Chucky S. You can call us that. But the thing about it is we are a full investment advisory firm where we can offer pretty much all the services that the larger firms can offer. But at the same time, we're able to do it at more of a boutique management style to make sure things are more customized and personalized to meet and align where people are, okay? So real quick, I'm trying to do a presentation which is kind of 30,000 feet in the air. Rather than going down a rabbit hole and confusing people, we always find it's best just to go ahead and, keep things somewhat layman, somewhat, at the level where we are. And then we also find that we get a lot more, especially for the audience, by being able to answer questions that they have. So we're definitely looking forward to answering those questions. And one of the things I do share with the audience is, look, I'm an investment advisor rep, I'm an investment advisor, financial planner. Ask me questions. I definitely know a slew of different things in our spaces, so take advantage of this opportunity to get some of those questions answered, okay? So real quick, EXG Nexus Solutions, where we focus on exposure, connection, and results. So quick synopsis, we are an independent investment advisory firm that works to connect individuals and small businesses to their vision. And we do this by implementing a holistic approach with a boutique management style. So what we offer as being a full investment advisory firm, asset management, portfolio management, brokerage accounts, also consultation as it relates to our portfolios. We also offer retirement plans as it relates to doing rollovers from old 401ks, 403bs. We offer IRAs, Roth IRAs. We also work with small businesses by doing 401ks, and also some of our higher income small business owners, we also offer pension plans, or what we call defined benefit plans. As well, we got to meet people where they are, especially when they're looking to make sure that the future is in a better situation. So we offer financial planning. So we work with our clients to help them be able to build their cash reserves, help them with their budgets, help them with debt reduction. For our clients for parents and grandparents, hey, maybe they want to go ahead and take care of their children or grandchildren's college tuition. So we help with that. Last year, we helped, I want to say 4 to 5 clients get their first homes, so which was great. And being able to help them be able to understand the intricacies associated with home buying to help them be able to make that objective happen. Also, we have our full licenses as it relates to life insurance, when it comes to health insurance too. So we offer both term and permanent life insurance policies, disability. Another aspect where we really put a lot of focus on is offering different type of hybrids when it comes to long-term care. In our communities, we have to be very knowledgeable of the fact that African American women are 2 times as likely to suffer from dementia or Alzheimer's, right? And the cost of long-term care is very expensive. So being able to get in front of our clients and come up with different alternatives and options in order to make sure they have security for later on is what we offer. We also focus on estate planning. That was definitely brought to you by our previous speaker, the importance of being able to focus on legacy. We also help our clients put them in the trust. We actually co-manage and are co-trustees for a few trusts right now, especially as it relates to individuals that may have some special needs. We do special needs trusts for individuals. Also, we help with our clients as it relates to, hey, what do we have in place as it relates to our wills or anything when it comes to legacy, and we help them with that process. And then finally, in order to meet people where they are, we also hold our licenses as it relates to property and casualty. So when it comes to home, auto, general liability for businesses, errors and omissions insurance, group health. We just got finished doing a group health policy for a nonprofit that was located nationwide. Different types of things in order to help meet individuals and businesses and take them to the next level. That's what we do. So real quick synopsis on my background, so people are like, all right, well, this is a great story, but who are you? So give you my brief education. I have a bachelor's in science in structural engineering from the University of California, San Diego. I also have my MBA from the Carlson School of Management, University of Minnesota. I've been in this space for a little over 14 years, helping individuals and businesses take their game to the next level. Have all my licenses, so definitely I am what is called a fiduciary license advisor. So when fiduciary basically means it's all about the best interest of the client, not about me trying to sell a policy to get a commission. It's about making sure that we are aligned with the customer when it comes to their objectives, so we can help them align to wherever they're looking to go. Okay. Again, life insurance, property and casualty licenses, and our forte, especially when it comes to me, is really strategic planning and business planning, and really being able to connect a strategy with a plan. So in order for us to go to the next level, we have to have a plan, because otherwise we're walking aimlessly in the woods if we don't know exactly where we're going. So we definitely need to make sure that we have a roadmap, okay? So with that being said, what I really want to focus on in this presentation is really focus on wealth, because we're starting to hear a lot more of that in today's news about the importance of wealth. A lot of times in our community, we haven't been educated on what wealth really is. In our mind, it's all about, how do I make $1 out of 15 cents? How do I make more money to get where I need to be? And one of the things I focus on my clients is it's not about making money. It's about being able to take what we earn, spend less, and it's all about that net profit. And what we do with that, and the previous speaker spoke to, we got to buy these assets. We got to grow our assets base, because when it comes to legacy, when we pass, well, that income doesn't go with us, right? But those assets do, right? So we need to focus on assets and growing them, and that's what wealth is all about, okay? So what is wealth again? Quick answer, it's our assets minus our liabilities. So that's what net worth is, assets minus liabilities, because that's the true essence of what wealth is. It's our balance sheet. I have conversations with our clients, and the biggest thing I tell them is we really need to focus on look at ourselves as being a company, incorporated. Tonette Campbell, Inc., David Johnson, Inc. We are our own companies, right? And the objective should be building our assets and then bringing down our debt, okay? So quick synopsis on what a balance sheet looks like. Well, it's our savings account where we hold our cash reserves. It's that value in our home, right? That equity. So the value of the house minus what we owe is our equity. It's the retirement accounts. We were able to help out a good number of our clients be able to purchase their first home because they didn't know they can leverage their 401ks or their TSPs or 403bs in order to put them a down payment on their home, right? It's an asset. Brokerage accounts, being able to have a taxable account where we can buy stocks, bonds, have cash, be able to showcase our value. And the young lady presented before, hey, assets are also that art, coins, jewelry, etc. Those are the value items that we have in our portfolio that give us a chance to have and hold on to wealth. Sometimes we may have these older whole life or universal life policies that have a cash value. Well, that element is actually really considered an asset. Liabilities will be, look, we got to pay that home mortgage, right? So that's a long-term debt that we have on the books, student loans, personal loans, all that car note, right? Credit cards, any type of debitors that we have out there, those are the definition of liabilities. At the end of the day, it's all about growing the assets and decreasing liabilities. From looking at this balance sheet, you can see, hey, if I increase my assets and bring down my liabilities, hey, you know what? That's my net worth. So when we start hearing about, superstars, Jay-Z and Beyonce, Oprah, and they say net worth, well, it's their assets minus their liabilities. It's not like they have $1 billion in cash. It's the fact that they have $1 billion when it takes the sum of everything, that's what they're worth, okay? So when it's all said and done, wealth is independence. This is a great little excerpt that I got from Stephen Covey. True financial independence is not having wealth, it's having the power to produce wealth. That's huge. It's not how much we make, it's how much we spend. So that's the conversation that I have with a lot of clients, where it's just like, look, we bring in a certain amount home, and then we have the cash outflow when it comes to our expenses. What do we do with that net profit? Well, classic example is we actually have a client of ours. She came to us making around, let's say, $65,000 a year. Has a great job, really enjoys what she does. But we found that she was a great saver, had good amount of capital saved. Matter of fact, over 6 figures. The problem was she wasn't invested in it. She didn't have it in the right vehicles where we weren't getting return on our dollars, where the dollars weren't working for us, right? Compare that to one of our clients, very successful, has a great paying job, makes $175, but the balance sheet ain't that strong because this individual only has $2,000 in the savings account, right? Has the nice little whip, Range Rover, got condo, everything. But when it comes to actual assets, when it comes to net worth, this person has less net worth than my client who has $65,000, makes $65,000 a year, right? So who's likely to get and to put in for an application to get a $50,000 loan from a bank? It's going to be my client who just only makes $65,000 a year. Because what the financial institution wants to know, yeah, it's great that you have this income, but what happens to you if you can't work? You lose your job. Well, how are you going to be able to pay us back our loan? Well, we're going to look at the person who's going to streamline the most risk for us, right? the individual sitting on 6 figures plus in assets and cash, correct? So that's why it's so important to make sure that we focus on net profit, bringing in more income because it's great, but we also got to bring down those expenses so we can have more net profit to do what? To be able to go ahead and be able to build and create new assets, and also at the same time to pay off the debt, okay? So here's something that, you know, I definitely always like to showcase to our clients, and then, you know, our previous speaker spoke to this before, how we lag so much in our communities of color when it comes to wealth. As you can tell, through the 60s and all the way to, this goes up to 2016, the huge gap when it comes to black and white wealth, right? So for the median white household, you're talking $150,000 essentially. For black households, we're just talking what? $13,000. We're talking about a 13 to 14 times difference when it comes to wealth. But as you can see to our right, it's totally not about education, because we can still be educated, but we still could have a wealth gap. So even when we look at individuals in the African American communities that have either bachelor's or advanced degrees, we still have less wealth than the average or median white individual that just has a high school education or even just some college. So this showcases the fact that there's a huge gap in our community when it comes to recognizing the importance of, it's about asset building, not just totally about income. But when we start looking at income, we really start to see how the reason why we're so behind, because we start to see how there's a huge gap in our community when it comes to median income. When you're talking about in 2018, 70,000 or 71,000 for whites compared to 41,000 for African Americans. And if you look at the chart, you can really tell that where we really got hit really hard was when? During the Great Recession, right? Our incomes came down big time. And if you segue it and you look over to the right, when it comes to black home ownership, right, which is pretty much the true element or foundation when it comes to wealth, well, our numbers have been pretty much stagnant through essentially for 40, 50 years. We're still less than 50% in our communities of color when it comes to black home ownership, especially when you start to compare that with whites, where you start to see where, look, a true element of wealth happens to be our home, and then very few of us have the opportunity to be homeowners. This is the reason why there's such a huge gap, okay? So when it comes to financial security, it's really all about building a solid foundation. This is really where, as an advisor, where we play. One of the things I share with my clients is, you know, we have to look at ourselves also like we try to create our own virtual castle, right? Well, when it comes to our castle, well, what protects a castle? A moat, a drawbridge. Well, when you see the bottom of this particular pyramid, you see that we're playing defense. Life insurance, health insurance, long-term care. We have savings account. Well, that's when we're playing defense. We're protecting the assets. One of the biggest things that I share with my clients where there's a huge gap in knowledge in our community is the fact that life insurance is not an investment vehicle. Life insurance is what it is. It's an insurance to protect the future us. It's insurance to protect, to make sure that we pass prematurely, that we're still able to meet our objectives as a family, right? And make sure that if it comes to paying down the house, being able to make sure we have a secure retirement, being able to pay for our children's education, we have life insurance in place. I have to educate a good number of our clients that a whole life policy is not an investment vehicle. It's insurance. It's a very expensive, when it's all said and done, vehicle that is not very flexible, right? That we pay a lot of money into, that we don't get the overall return from. Because who takes care of a life insurance policy? Well, life insurance carriers. So what do you think they're doing with the money that you give them? They taking a portion of that or what? And investing in the market and getting a return. So here we are getting just a little sliver of return because they put it in some sort of bond account where you get very little return, especially in this low interest rate environment, and they're able to get more return from our dollars. So those are the type of educational type of things that I try to work with our clients by focus on building the assets, playing offense, right? Purchasing a home, making sure that we have more retirement when we are at that later age. I'm working with a good number of seniors right now that income is very important when we are in the 60s and 70s plus. We are not on as many radars later on in life. We're cute and everything right now, and 30s, 40s and stuff like that, but life happens, right? Sometimes our partners pass, sometimes our partners leave. We have to make sure that we're in a great stable position and have peace of mind for ourselves, because we may not have a lot of individuals on our team later on in life, right? So we have to make sure we make the proper decisions right now by putting more in our 401ks, opening up an IRA, opening up a Roth IRA, putting money away for our children's education. That's playing in building assets. The upper portion of it is, oh, that's the big boy issues, right? Estate planning, legacy planning. That's what people have money, right? They're thinking about, oh, I got to make sure as a grandparent, I'm passing it on to my grandkids. We have conversations with clients that say to us, hey, David, I want to make sure that my grandkids are safe or on point. You know what? My kids are all right. I spent too much money on them in college. I want to make sure that my grandkids, regardless of whatever their parents are doing, are going to be on the right footing. So we having conversations about trust. Let them recognize there's hundreds and hundreds of different types of trust where we can make sure that, hey, when they graduate from college, you can set the trust up to say, okay, in the trust, I'm going to leave my grandchild, my granddaughter, $25,000 so she could put a down payment on a house. And along with that, if she graduates from college, I'm going to give her $2,000 a month. And that money is going to be in what? It's still an investment account. Making sure that is allowing that grandchild to be able to go ahead and what? Build wealth, correct? The last piece, and there's the upper portion is what? Tax liability strategies. When you make more money, oh, the biggest thing my clients talk about is, oh, these taxes are killing me, right? So that's when they come to us and look at different types of tax strategies in order to what? Keep dollars within your fold. You want to be able to have more money in your portfolios for you to what? Be able to do the things that you're looking to do. Ultimately, that's what? Buying more assets, okay? So when it comes to assets, especially when it comes to investments, I usually like to just showcase this to people, the different types of assets out there and opportunities that they have when it comes to investing. Of course, everything is about risk reward balance. So of course, at the bottom, we have less reward is going to be, or less risk is going to be our bonds, it's going to be a savings account, a money market account. But as we start to really take on more risk, we can start thinking about high grade municipal bonds, mutual funds. We can start thinking about balanced mutual funds, large capitalization common stocks. We can start thinking about real estate investment trusts when we start talking about investing in real estate. We can start talking about exchange traded funds. But as you start to go up, you start to deal with a lot more speculative type of items. We start to deal with things like cryptocurrencies, things like options. When we start to play and take on more risk, hey, it's an opportunity of more reward, but we got to be a lot more cognizant of the fact that, hey, what goes up can also go down. So we want to make sure that we have a very diverse portfolio to make sure we get the most bang from our buck, okay? So the key points I wanted to make today was assets are the keys to wealth and peace of mind. home ownership is the gateway to wealth. We use our profits in order for us to build. And also at the same time, we also just have multiple options for us to be able to use. And so as I end, I just want to go ahead and give you our contact information if you guys are ever interested in having a conversation with us, or you can email us, give us a call. We also have our website address on there too, where you can also go ahead and register for a free consultation, which is complimentary. So that was a quick synopsis on wealth and wealth building. I really look forward to the questions that we have afterwards. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, David. That was great. So I wanted to point out that, like, I like the quote that you had, not having wealth, but having the power to produce wealth. It's very important because I did have a client, 6 figures, so many cars, so many credit cards, and they were shocked that they were only approved for about $175,000 loan. So that is definitely very important. So I'm glad you brought that up. So now that we've heard about the past and the present, it's time to hear about the future. So our next speaker is Ayla Harris. She's a loan officer with Fairway Mortgage, also a preferred lender for Charm City buyers. Ayla will speak on the benefits of homeownership, which is one of David's key points. Homeownership is a gateway to wealth. She will also speak on the point of view of a lender and the fact that she's a very important piece of the process, because without her, us realtors are not able to assist you with buying a home, which will ultimately provide you with building wealth and equity for the future, unless, of course, you're paying cash. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to you, Ayla.
I'm Ayla Harris, loan officer with Fairway Mortgage. And I want to, Flo gave a really good synopsis, but I also want to touch on strategies. David, I took a picture of his quote, which was, where's this gallery? He mentioned strategy and tactics and how they're different, and then having one without the other is useless. It says strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy are the noise before the defeat. So we're going to talk about tactics, which are loan options, adjustable, fixed types of loans, occupancy styles, down payments, all the nitty gritty. But in what order do you do those things in order to achieve your goal? Okay, and it's important to know that everyone's goal is different. If they intend to hold this house for themselves, hold this property, or pass it on to somebody else, we'll talk about tenancy. I feel like there are a fair amount of agents on this call. If you are not an agent, can you put yourself in the chat? That way I know who my audience is and I can tailor my presentation to you, okay? So if you're not an agent, please put yourself in the chat, okay? Albert, not an agent. Anybody else? Not an agent? I feel like there's 2 other people that I don't recognize, but they might be agents. But that's that. Okay, so we're gonna, okay, and Janelle, good to know. So I'm gonna share things as, you know, buyers. Now for the 2 of you, have you bought a home before? And okay, have you bought a home before, or you're a first time home buyer, you own property, trying to get your next one? That way, again, I can tailor what I share with you to achieve your goals. Okay, Albert, not yet. Kay. This thing is fast. Okay, not yet. Okay, so now that I know who I'm talking to, we can make this work. Okay. Okay, so we're going to talk about home ownership, the benefits of it. I don't really need to touch on that. I think Nika and David have done a very thorough job of that. Preparing for your loan application, that's a very straightforward process. Home financing options and your strategy. We're going to specifically tactics and strategy, doing things in the right order. Number 1, to preserve cash. Number 2, to achieve your goal. Okay. And then, you know, choosing the loan that's right for you. So rent versus mortgage, clearly, David's already talked about equity. I don't need to really cover this, but ultimately, you think about your monthly payments over 30 years. If your rent was $900, and we know that rent is not $900 anywhere, you will have paid $324,000, and that's not including rent increases every year, and we know that happens. And then if you were to do a fixed rate mortgage with a sale price of $225 over 30 years, you've paid this amount, which is nearly $100,000. You've paid interest, okay? But you also have equity. The house that you bought for $225 is now worth $450, $500, hopefully over 30 years. Okay, so either way, when you go to sell that house, you now have profit upon which to invest. And David clearly demonstrated various ways to invest it. You don't only have to buy real estate. Real estate is not the only way to become wealthy, but it's a great strategy because you need a place to live. Okay, now I'm sharing, these are the questions that I typically share with investors. Some apply to first timers, but really to get your mind right as an investor. And even as a first time home buyer, if this is your primary residence, it's your first home, you intend to live here, it may not be your forever home, okay? Tiffany typically says, she's on this call, she typically says your first home is your investment property. You're not gonna live there forever. Most people don't live in their forever home forever, okay? So you buy it, it's not like your forever home, you started out there, you move on to your next house, you rent that out, boom, you're an investor. Okay, and you had some program money to help you with that. Your parents might have helped you with that. Grandparents might have helped you with that. The full burden may not have been on your shoulders, but now you're an investor and you did it for as little money out of pocket as possible. And if you're smart about it, it's cash flowing. Okay, so things to consider. What is your comfortable monthly payment? Buyers always ask me, well, Ayla, what am I qualified for? What you're qualified for and what you want to pay are two very different things. I have buyers that are qualified for $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 homes that want a payment around a $300,000 house. Okay, so we have to make that distinction between what you want to pay and what the bank will lend you. And I'm speaking as a lender here. Don't take the highest pre-approval amounts. It's designed to keep you impoverished. It's designed to keep you paying that mortgage for 30 years. It is not intended for you to pay it off early. If you pay it off early, the bank makes less money. So know what you're comfortable with and stick to that budget. And then can you afford the down payment and the closing costs? Okay, everyone talks about down payment, but buying real estate is not an inexpensive endeavor. It's quite expensive. So you have title fees, lender fees, title insurance. The biggest part is transfer and recordation tax in Maryland. Other states do it differently, but Maryland here, it's quite expensive. We have escrow. Escrow is a fancy word for savings account. Okay, and that's a portion of your closing costs. And that dollar amount varies greatly based on your property taxes and your insurance. So ultimately, when we're having our consultation, which is free, we're going to talk about these things, where you are and where you want to be and how we're going to get there. Okay. Now, something else to consider, when do you think you'll sell this home? If you think you're going to be in this house 3 to 5 years, I'm thinking get you in the house for as cheaply as possible, because you're going to need that cash to buy your next home. But if you're going to be in this house or own it, you may not live there, but if you own it for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, we're now thinking long-term, okay? And that changes your financial strategy, which now we're doing different loans. It's a different tactic to achieve that strategy, okay? Additional costs, a lot of investors, okay? Even if you haven't bought a home, you're thinking, you're investment minded. You're not a consumer. Consumers get money, spend money. Investors get money, spend as little as possible, and invest the rest, just like David said. So we're investment minded, not consumer minded. There are additional costs. Owning a home, you have maintenance. Don't be scared of it. There's a home warranty to help you with that. You have, there's liability now associated with home ownership. Your homeowner's policy helps you with that. There's umbrella policies. David mentioned that as well. I have a typo, I'm sorry. It says here, if I intend to rent the property now or in the future, who is my target market? The property that I'm in right now, this particular unit, my partner, we're in Ohio right now. So this is a triplex. The bottom level is rented. This level is vacant right now. And the upstairs, we're doing an Airbnb this weekend, like getting it set up. So knowing who your target market is will dictate the type of property you purchase, where you purchase it. It will dictate or contribute to your vision. Everyone here has clearly said, and I'm just going to repeat it, you need a plan. You need a plan. If you don't have a plan, I don't know how to help you. Okay, if you say, Ayla, I can tell you how to get there. But if you're like, I want everything, well, then nothing's an option because we have no direction. But your target market will dictate where you purchase and what you do with it. Okay. And this is really important since it's Black History Month. Am I doing this by myself or with a team? Okay. And that team can be your sister, it can be your brother, mom or dad, your best friend forever. It can be whomever you trust, who has the same vision as you and the same level of dedication as you. I put the word here, JAMA, which is cooperative economics. Doing everything on your own, that's a burden. It's stress. It's hard. But when you work together, you can achieve more than the sum of your parts. So you doing it by yourself, 1 + 0 = 1. And if you have additional responsibilities like, a spouse, children, career, 1 + 1 - 1, you're now depleted. You can't pour from an empty cup. But if you have 2 people, 3 people working together in their lane and they're good at it, 1 + 1 does not equal 2. 1 + 1 = 8. 1 + 1 + 2 = 12 when you're working together and when everyone is playing their part in their lane. Okay. Now, mortgage payment versus house payment. What you see on the company that rhymes with pillow, their estimated mortgage payments are not accurate. Everyone in real estate hates that company because they're just completely inaccurate on everything, But you have a house payment and then you have your mortgage payment. So what the company that rhymes with pillow says, when they're talking about mortgage, they're only talking about principal and interest. That's it. Okay. And that's if you put down 20%. Most people aren't doing that. And usually it doesn't always make sense, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But then if we're talking about a whole house payment, when you tell me, Ayla, I want a payment of $1,800, I'm talking about everything: principal and interest, taxes, your homeowner's insurance, your mortgage insurance, if that applies to you, and potentially any association dues, depending on what the objective is: condo, townhome, single family home, HOA, no HOA. When you tell me a budget, that's what we're talking about. Okay. This is really important to make this distinction: mortgage versus house payment. This is the part of your payment that doesn't change. Okay. This is the part of your payment that will change. 2 things are certain in life: death and taxes. Taxes always go up. When do they ever go down? There are certain situations. Like Nika said, the home owner's tax credit to keep seniors in their homes when their incomes are reduced. That is critical. I've helped people with this. It's a huge benefit. Okay. Now, total cost of purchase. For my first timers, you have pre-purchase costs, you have funds due at closing. Okay, what I want you to do is take a picture of this with your phone or screenshot it, however you want to do it, because this is a lot to cover. And we're, again, investment minded, future minded, but take a picture of this because we'll talk about it during your consultation. Let me give you 10 more seconds. Okay. Now the home buying process, this is, again, it's a function. I'm not going to call it a strategy or a tactic. It's a process. This looks very complicated. I divide it into 3 sections. Okay. The money, the house, and then closing. So we first start with, which is actually a pre-approval. We're going to talk about your credit, employment, income, and assets. That's literally all it takes to buy a home. That's it. Credit, employment, income, and savings. Don't overthink it. If you have decent credit, if you have stable employment, if you have income and you have some money saved, or we have access to capital, like David mentioned, access to capital. We now have a mortgage. The math for mortgages, super simple. The rules, extensive. That's where I come in. We'll figure it out. Just tell me your scenario. We'll work it out. Annette can attest to that. Annette can attest to that. We've had many loans where sometimes buyers don't follow directions. There's a problem, we fix it, just follow directions. But then once we have the money in order, then you go out with your agent to look at homes. Again, vision becomes key. Know what you want so I can advise you on what your options are. I don't tell grown folks how to spend their money. Here are your options. Here are the pros and cons, short-term and long-term, for each of those choices, each of them. And then you sleep on it, make a decision. And then your agent, you say, I'm looking for a triplex. I want my tenants to pay my mortgage or the majority of it. Or I'm thinking, This is a home that I'm going to live in for like 2 to 3 years. I'm with someone, probably going to get married, have a couple of kids. Then we're going to move out to Carroll County for the schools, or we're going to move to DC for his or her job. You know, we'll figure it out. But your vision will dictate the type of home that is appropriate for this particular purchase. And then once we have a home, it's negotiated, seller accepts your offer. That's kind of like a thing right now, but talk to your agent about that. But then ultimately, we'll go through this process. I trust what you tell me, okay? You're gonna do an application, tell the truth, tell the whole truth. I'm gonna ask you questions. I'm gonna ask for documentation. But ultimately, everything in your file is gonna be verified, okay? Once it's verified, the underwriter reviews it, approves it, and then we just wrap up your file, which is sending out your closing disclosure. We'll have an appraisal done, but we're wrapping up your loan. Without any programs, that takes anywhere from 25 to 30 days. If we are using any sort of down payment assistance or looking for any sort of credits, that's going to extend your time from 40 to 45 days. And for certain programs, 60. Certain ones, they're all different. Are you guys hearing background noise? No, okay, good. Now, do's and don'ts when applying for a mortgage. For my first timers, I would like you to take a picture with your phone for this, okay? Basically, remain stable. Here's the thought process behind it. When you're applying for a lease, I see this post online all the time. Somebody says, I can afford $1,500 a month in rent, but the bank will only allow me to have a $1,000 payment. Here's the reason why. But your landlord does not care about your financial health. They're concerned with how you are going to pay this rent for 1 year. It's very short term. For a mortgage, we're entering into a 30-year relationship. Think about it like marriages. Mortgages are like marriages. A marriage, you would not meet somebody today and commit to them for 30 years. You want to date them for a little while, see how they behave. And then right before you go actually down the aisle, you might get a little bit of cold feet. You might want to do some extra checks, okay, just to make sure before I enter into this relationship, it's the right one. Same thing with mortgages. We're getting 2 years tax returns, 2 years W-2s. We're looking at a 2-year employment history. Are you stable? Okay, not perfect, not rich, stable. Okay, and then based on that stability, you get pre-approved for that loan. Then we go through the process. Right before settlement, we want to make sure you still have your job, you're still making the same money, you didn't blow your savings, you didn't take on more debt. Are you stable before we enter into this 30-year mortgage marriage commitment? Okay, so these are the things that you want to do. Have access to your financials. Okay, it's money. Just take a picture. We'll talk about this later. And then here are the don'ts. Also take a picture for this. All of these things indicate instability. Okay, we're looking for stability. 5 more seconds, take a picture. Okay. Now we're going to get into tactics, and then we're going to cover strategy. Now that we've covered the details, there are different categories or types of mortgages. There's a fixed rate mortgage and an adjustable rate mortgage. Remember we talked about that PITI, the principal and interest, that mortgage part, that when we say a fixed rate mortgage, that's the part that doesn't change. Escrow can change, therefore your payment can go up. But that's not an adjustable rate mortgage, that's escrow changing. But if we have an adjustable rate mortgage, the principal and interest, that can change, okay, based on market movement. When it changes, how often it changes, all that jazz. We're not going to get into different types of arms at this point, but that type of loan is for people who are probably going to be in a house short term, okay? And they know they're going to be in this house short term if it makes sense for them and if they can handle that adjustment. Most people don't like the variability. They prefer something fixed, but I've done a couple loans like this and it makes sense for certain planners, for certain types of plans. This is an important part. Take a picture of this. Occupancy. There are 3 ways you can occupy a home from a lending perspective: as a primary residence, a second home, or an investment property. Okay, and these are in order of risk. Just like David mentioned, high risk, high reward, low risk, low reward. Same thing with lenders. Low risk, lower rate, high risk, higher rate, higher down payment. Okay. Now let's talk about loan programs. Every type of loan, traditional loan, not hard money, private money, non-QM, portfolio with traditional mortgages. We have conventional, FHA, VA, and USDA loans. Take a picture of this because you're going to want this. 5 more seconds. Okay. We're going to focus on this right here because this is where we get into strategy. So if this is a home that you're going to occupy as a primary residence, okay, that means all 4 loan type options are available to you: conventional, FHA, VA, or USDA. But if we're looking to acquire a second home, and a second home to a lender means vacation home, not the second purchase, like you bought your first home, now you're buying your second home. That's not what that means. It's a vacation home. Second homes and investment properties can only use conventional financing. But let's check out these down payments. Okay, primary conventional 3 to 5, second home 10, investment 15 to 25%. But then look at these down payments. They're way more affordable. Okay, flip rule for my investors who want to get in and get out. Here's what this means. If you're going to flip a house, that determines who can now buy that house. If you're trying to get that quick cash, FHA has a flip rule. Conventional loans are up to underwriter discretion. VA and USDA loans don't. So if you're trying to get a house, flip it, put it back on the market, be mindful of who your target market is. Like I mentioned before, that way you don't make an expensive mistake, because that'll dictate what you do and when you do it and how much you'll spend on it. Now, mortgage insurance. This is for the first timers and for the agents on the call and for the non-first timers. Everyone talks about PMI. Take a picture of this. You can Google it, YouTube it to your heart's delight. But let me give you a concrete example of what happened on Tuesday this week. I'm talking to a client. She has $200,000 in cash available for her investments. She lives in New York, and New York is crazy expensive. She wants to buy in Baltimore. It's less expensive. She wants a primary in New York and an investment in Baltimore. And she's like, Ayla, I want to avoid PMI. I hear you. I get it. Mortgage interest is potentially tax deductible. Mortgage insurance is not, okay? And it's a fee that you as the buyer pay that serves you no purpose. Well, it serves a purpose for the bank and you're the one paying for it. Think about it like car insurance. You pay a premium if something happens, car accident, whatever. You file a claim and then you get the money to repair your vehicle. With mortgage insurance, in the event that the homeowner defaults on the loan, they go into foreclosure, that money is still owed, okay? The bank forecloses on the house and then they sell it to recoup some of that money that was lost in the loan. Whatever is left over, they file a claim with the mortgage insurance company to recoup some of that money, just like car insurance. You file a claim, you get the money. But you as the homeowner are paying for it. It does not benefit you in any capacity, okay? This is why people don't want to pay it, but there's an opportunity cost, okay? An opportunity cost. Let me give you an example. So she wants to buy a property, $750,000 in New York. If she puts that, it's a multifamily, and she was like, I want to go conventional so I don't have to have mortgage insurance. Fine, because she didn't qualify for VA or USDA. Okay, that didn't apply. So she puts down for conventional, primary, investment property, the down payment's 25%. 25% of $750,000 is $187,500. She only has $200,000 in cash. So if she goes this route to avoid PMI, she can only buy one property, maybe 3 or 4 units. That's it. If she goes FHA for this purchase and puts 10% down, that's going to be $75,000. Okay, she'll have the mortgage insurance for 11 years, a flat 11 years, regardless of equity. She now has, plus her closing costs, let's say we're up to $95,000. We still have $105,000 to buy a way less expensive property in Baltimore. Down payment, closing costs, and the reserve requirements. So her trying to avoid mortgage insurance was going to cost her another property that's going to add to her cash flow so she can continue to live, because she's about 2 years out from retirement. Okay, so strategy, like knowing what your options are, take a picture of this chart, but then knowing how to organize your plans and do things in the correct order will make a massive difference in what you can actually achieve, okay, before she hits retirement. Now, as far as, David can speak to this, Social Security planning and all that jazz, owning multiple homes, that cuts into your Social Security benefits. Okay, but I'm not going to speak to that. I don't know your situation, but just keep it in mind that we want to do things in the right order in order to preserve your cash and help you achieve the goal. Now, for first-time home buyers, there are a lot of programs to assist you, but I want to make it very clear, painfully clear, that there's the mortgage and then there's the programs. I do not use the word grant, okay, because grant makes you think it's free money. Some programs are actually grants. Many of them are loans that are forgiven if you satisfy the criteria. Many of them are loans that stay loans. So, and that's not the end of the world either, as long as we know what we're walking into, eyes wide open, and we have a plan where this makes sense, okay? That's available to you. Now, I should put this differently, but strategy and education. You can buy a multifamily, like the client in New York. You can house hack. I've done this before. I did this a couple of years ago. Live in a house and rent out the rooms, okay? At this point, you're sharing space, kind of like a roommate situation, housemate situation, but I'm still not paying the mortgage, okay? Uncomfortable to a degree, but if you're like living with people you know, maybe to a lesser degree. Cooperative economics. Find people that you can work with, okay, and have a plan. And we can talk about what this means from a real estate perspective. How do you protect yourself? And if you're like, I need to talk to an attorney, I know so many real estate attorneys, okay? So many title companies. You just go to a title company. We can talk about how would we write this deed? What tenancy would we use in order to protect both parties? What is the exit strategy for both parties in the event that we want to get out, okay? And how are we going to finance that? Let's have the conversation, because it's not impossible. It's not. There's a class online. MGIC is a mortgage insurance company, and they have a landlord education workshop, and it's free and it's online. And this is not specific to any particular state. It is there just to give you general foundational knowledge about how to be a landlord. That way people are paying you versus you paying them. You are no longer a consumer. You are now an investor. Assets are things that pay you, okay? Liabilities are things that you pay. So people say, I have a home, I have an asset. In theory, yes. From a lender's perspective, no. So having a home means it has value, so it's an asset. But if the mortgage or if the balance on that loan is greater than the value of the house, you're upside down on the house, okay? So like David mentioned, net worth. Let's say the house is worth $400,000 and you owe $200,000 on it. There's a difference of $200,000 in equity there. That's contributing to your net worth. That's a good thing, okay? But you want to learn these things, you know, through the landlord education, or we can have a consultation and talk about it. Determine your county-specific rental licensing requirements, because there's no point in doing all this work, having these conversations, having a plan, doing everything right, having your ducks in a row, and then you not be good with all of the regulatory agencies that have been historically oppressive. But nevertheless, we still have to make sure that we're protecting the assets that you have. Protect what you have, and then be offensive-minded when you're trying to acquire more, okay? This is really specific because I'm just sick of seeing this be wrong because it's hurting people. It's hurting people with their goals. Rental income goes on a Schedule E. For all the agents on this call, for all the individuals on this call, rental income goes on a Schedule E as in Edward. And I'm emphasizing this, I put it in all caps, because people are trying to hide money on their taxes and then shooting themselves in the foot. Here's the thing, taxes do not benefit consumers. Okay, if you work, earn money, and spend, you're screwed. There's nothing here for you. If you own something, you can deduct so many more things. Tell the IRS that you have a property, please. Please tell them that you have a property, so you can deduct all of the property taxes. Regular homeowners can't do that. Investors can. Your mortgage interest, that's deductible if you itemize as a consumer. 2018 changed that. But if you're an investor and you have a rental property or your home, you are renting it out, you can deduct your mortgage interest, period. For maintenance on your home. Maintenance on your home is not tax deductible if you're just a regular homeowner. It is tax deductible if you rent the property out. It's literally a line item on the Schedule E. If there is a major catastrophe, that can go both ways for just a consumer versus and someone who's investment minded. The amount of tax you pay is based on the number of months the property was eligible for rent. For primaries, there's no distinction on the federal taxes. So put your rental income on the Schedule E, which reduces your tax obligation. Okay, so let's say $1,000 a month for rent for the property. Their property's rented 12 months for the year. So they've paid on, they paid, the tenant paid their rent. You're now at $12,000 a year. Let's say we deduct $8,000, okay, in deductions. That means your taxable income on the house is only $4,000. But guess what? So that's a good thing tax-wise. But from a lending perspective, we can add back depreciation, add back the mortgage insurance, add back the HOA dues, add back all those things that I mentioned that were deductions. And now we have more qualifying income for you to buy the next house. So if you put the income on a Schedule E, you're paying less to Uncle Sam and you have more qualifying income for the loan. Hear me when I tell you, I'm going to say it one more time. Put your rental income on a Schedule E, please. Please put your rental income on a Schedule E and not a Schedule C because you feel like this is your business. You're shooting yourself in the foot. Okay. Now, LLC versus individual ownership. You've acquired these assets. You're feeling great. You're cash flowing. You're making money. You're helping people. You're keeping home ownership or renting affordable for others or more affordable for yourself. You're doing the right thing and you're profitable. How do you make sure you keep what you have? Continuity planning, not just for the hereafter, but also today, just protecting what you have. LLCs are amazing, okay, to protect you from that. This is not the only way, the only instrument to protect yourself. It's just a very common one, which is why I bring it up. The guidelines for lending and LLCs vary, okay? It's too much detail to get into for this call, but if you go conventional, Fannie does it a certain way, Freddie does it a different way, or they don't do it at all, actually. FHA is dependent on the servicer, which we don't know until after you close. VA, not allowed. USDA, not allowed. Okay, so there's a series of things that we have to account for, but guess what you can do? You can buy a property in the name of a trust, regardless of the loan type. And David just spoke on that. So if you're planning for the future, let's talk about trusts and how we're going to close in the name of a trust. The loan is in your name. The property is owned by the trust. And that's for all the loan types. You're covered. You're covered. You're protected. And you're achieving something for the future. So we've talked about the history and the shenanigans that we all endure, our ancestors endured, that we feel the results of today. Talked about money. David spoke about that. And I'm talking about once we get here, how do we actually, like pen to paper, boots on the ground, get the properties? This is what we're talking about now. It's important, guys. Obviously, you're here, you know that. But I'm happy to have consultations with you where we can discuss these things, your strategy and the tactics that are going to benefit you, and the order in which we do these things. Here's my contact information. I look better in that photo than it's a great picture. But the best way to reach me is my Calendly, because I'm typically always on the phone. So the Calendly is an online scheduling service. Go straight to my calendar and we'll talk. We'll talk about your plans. When you are coming to me, here's the expectation. When you come to me, know what you want or have an idea of, just a vision, even if it's this grandiose vision that you thought you could never, ever achieve. Tell me your biggest dreams. And we're going to talk about, okay, we can't do that today, but today we can do this. Okay. And then in 5 years, you're going to buy this. And then in year 10, 15, these properties are going to pay for that one. Okay. Tell me what you want. We'll tell you how to get there. Okay. If you have any questions, get on my calendar and we'll schedule a consultation. Thank you so much, Annette, Tinette, and Flo, and for bringing us on here. And Nika, we've done this before. David, this is our first time. The history of it all and the planning of it all, and all of us just being brown folks. I love it. But that's pretty much that. Thank you so much.
Wow, a wealth of information. Thank you, Ayla, for coming on. everybody, like I say, just blended very, very seamlessly with one another. We are over time, but there were some questions that were already posed in the chat, so I'm going to share those. And I understand we want to respect your time, so if you have to go, we understand. But I'm going to try to answer these questions here. The first one was a while back, and I think it was posed to David, and it was the question about, do you all offer DAFs?
I think the individual, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, donor advised funds.
Yeah, those are donor advised funds. So generally those are individuals that, you know, a lot of times, many times they may be higher income individuals that are looking for structures for them to be able to donate and be able to give to charities of their choice, and they leverage these funds in order to make that happen. We don't necessarily do them per se as a firm, but we do have some connections that do play in that space. So if that individual is interested in getting us a little help on that, we can help them with that.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, are sellers agents usually willing to share the amounts that other offers include with buyer agents? We've got a ton of agents on the call. Who wants to take that one?
I will take that one.
Okay.
One thing that we all like to tell our clients, I hope as agents, we're letting our clients know when we are submitting offers, what information that listing agent is able to give to us is based on the agreement that they have signed with the seller. So for instance, if the seller has given the listing agent permission to one, disclose if there's other offers, then they can share that. There are some sellers who don't want that information given and prefer to simply say, I don't want people to know if there's offers on the home, just have them send the offer and send their highest and best. They're able to say, you know, they kind of have to gauge to us what information we can disclose. So for that particular information, it is up to the seller, and it's going to be based off of the agreement between the seller and that listing agent.
Okay, thank you. And so this, I think, is a more of a title or maybe a legal question, but maybe I believe that Ayla could possibly answer it. For Forever Home, can a life estate deed be done at closing?
Yes, and it's not necessarily even just for Forever Homes. So life estate deed, when I hear that, I think remainderment. So let's backtrack on that. There are different, and I'm sorry if you hear noise, we're having electricians come in the house today, so I apologize. The tenancy, let's talk about that. There are different ways that someone can take title. You can do it as a sole person, a sole man, sole woman. You can do tenants by entirety, that's married folks. So two people who are legally married, legally they are one. We have joint tenants, person A, person B. Let's say we have person A, person B. Person B passes away. Their half of the house, their 50% automatically goes to person A, okay? Then we have tenants in common, person A, person B. Person B passes away. They can will their half of the house to whomever they choose. So now person A might own a house with, you know, person B's daughter or person B's son, and that was never the plan, but that's how their deed was written. But then you can also just do a remainderment type of deed. I forget the technical name of it, but it's where we have, let's just assume it's parent, okay? Parent owns this home and they're planning for their passing because we will all meet our maker at some point. So they put, you know, child 1, 2, and 3 on the deed as remainderment, not as joint owners or co-owners. That means that when parent passes away, that is when the ownership becomes effective for the children. That can be done at any sort of settlement. So let's say I'm buying my first house and I'm 60 and I have health conditions and I think I might pass in 10 years as opposed to 20, 30 years. You can do a remainderment deed right there. That will be a part of our conversation. So I can let title know this is the deed that we're drafting. So when we send the title order over, they know what to get from you, what to get from the kids or the adult children in order to make that happen. From my understanding and experience, remainderment must be over the age of 18. Okay, because that would cause an issue if a parent passes and the child is 15. What's going on with that kid? So that's been my experience, but I would definitely consult with a title attorney. We all here work with title folks, so I know a couple of good ones who give really concise answers, which is amazing, which is fantastic. Avoids probate. Let me not give legal advice, because I was told by one title person that it does, told by another title person that it doesn't, that the house can still go into probate, but that it'll go through quickly because the house has been assigned. So let me not give legal advice on that. In my mind, it should, but things change. I've had situation after situation after situation. Like in 2021, things went left because of COVID in 2020. So we had plenty of title issues to resolve, but I don't want to speak and I don't want to make a general statement about a specific situation.
Are there any other questions? You can feel free to type them in the chat or come off of mute.
Hi, I have a question. This is Nicole. This question was for David. I know you mentioned something about offering different college saving plans, I believe you said. So do you do anything sort of like 529 plans?
We can direct clients and give them advice on 529s, and we educate them on the platform. We also work with our clients by also doing another platform called a UTMA, which is a Uniform Transfers Minors Act, where it's basically a custodial account. So it's a good way for the client or the custodian, in a sense, for the minor to be able to put them in an open architecture platform. And then ultimately, when the child, quote unquote, becomes age, I think 21 to 25, depending on the state, it's their account, right? And the cool thing about that is we actually have a group of young men that have their own investment clubs. As a matter of fact, I think they're between the ages of 12 and 17. And we advise them, and they actually are able to buy their own stocks and ETFs, and they want Nike or H&M or Ford. Now they're becoming more educated on what it is to invest. So now, rather than just going to McDonald's to buy a burger, they can also be a shareholder also. So long and short of it, the answer is yes, we can help clients with 529s. Usually 529s are controlled by a state, right? And so pretty much we got to deal with their particular platform and how they have the assets set up from a mutual fund standpoint. One of the things I do share with clients is the fact that 529s can be somewhat a little expensive in the sense of, you got to remember now you got these fees, not only the state is getting, but also you got this layer of fees associated with the mutual funds. So what we try to do is let them know that there's definitely different options out there for saving for their child or children beyond just a blanket 529. So the long and short of it is yes, but we also try to spell out, showcase other options too.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
If everyone could put their contact information, well, not everyone, but the presenters could put their contact information one last time so we have it there.
Everyone that registered for today's meeting, we will do a follow-up email, which will include the contact information for our guests today. If no one has any other questions, I want to thank you for coming out today, and thank you just for staying a little bit longer. We certainly appreciate your time. And please continue to watch our Facebook page. We will be hosting future meetings. And again, thank you everyone for joining us, and please have a wonderful day.